Alright everybody, welcome back to Ion Motive, and as always, I'm so happy to have you here today. I haven't done a full-length episode in a little while. If you listen to the last episode, Take a Leap, that one was a bit shorter. Actually, quite a bit shorter. It was only 6 minutes long, and I'm really looking forward to doing this episode. I haven't done a full-length episode in quite some time, so, we're due. It's time to do one again. Like I said, I'm getting back into school. I'll really quickly just talk about my summer just to catch you guys up. I worked at a bar in Swartz Creek. My dad is a owner with a couple other guys. He's a partial owner with 2 other guys. And I worked as a server. I really enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun. It was something that I've never done before, so it was definitely a new experience. But I like the restaurant industry, so that was pretty cool to be a part of it, but from a different side, Other than that, I did a summer class, and that went pretty well, pretty easy, not too bad. And just hung out with some friends, did some things like that. Went fishing, went skydiving, and yeah, that's really about it. Just wanted to talk about that for a quick minute here. But now let's get back to the episode. So today, I'm going to be talking about why you need to take time to reflect. It's something that we don't really talk about in self-improvement a whole lot. And I think part of the reason we don't talk about it is because some people might fall into the illusion that it's almost counterproductive. Like, you have to be doing something all the time in order to keep moving forward. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about why I don't think that's true. I think at times we need to slow down. So, like all my other episodes, I'm going to start by explaining this concept, and that explanation is going to be very brief. It's only going to take me a minute to explain what I mean when I say you should reflect. And then I'm going to provide you with a couple of reasons, actually I think 3 or 4, but some of them are kind of related as to why you should reflect, why it will greatly benefit you. So, with that being said, let's get this episode started. But hold up, before we do that, if you enjoy listening to this show, if you enjoy watching these episodes, please subscribe, please download, leave a like, do those things. It greatly benefits me, and I really appreciate it. So thank you. And thank you for taking your time to listen to today's episode. I hope it benefits you, and I hope you enjoy it. So let's get going. When I say reflect, what do I mean? I'm not talking about the Mulan song, the "Who is that girl I see staring straight," that one. The reflection song. Sorry, my singing's really bad. I'm talking about thinking, and that's really it. When I say reflect, I mean finding time to think. That's it. Nothing complicated, pretty simple. It probably helps to think about what this actually looks like. For me, it means going to a place where I can limit my distractions and spend some time thinking so that I can better myself. I try to do this in different places at different times depending on what I'm able to do. So I've talked about it before, but I like to reflect when I'm fishing. When, I'm alone pretty much. I'm out in the boat. I'm sitting on the end of the dock. It's just me, just the lake. That's a good time where I'm able to think and work through some problems or create some new breakthroughs. I also might take time to reflect when I go on a walk. So one of the things that I've been doing is I've been going on walks, and I wear my headphones, but I put on music that doesn't have any words. It's just instrumental. And I think that's one way that I can limit distractions. 1, the music helps me block out the noise, but 2, the lack of words allows me to focus on my own thoughts. And another place that I reflect is working on my podcast, actually writing the script for these episodes. That's another way that I like to reflect. It's really forcing me to think about what I want to say in these episodes. It forces me to actually elaborate on my thoughts. It forces me to think of ways that I can present my thoughts so that it makes sense to other people. Because I know sometimes it's challenging to elaborate on a concept when you feel like you really understand it, when you feel like it clicks. Like, there are some things that makes perfect sense to me, but when I try to share it with another person, the the concept just doesn't reach them. And often that's because I'm explaining it in a way that's only relevant to me. So by taking the time to write out the podcast, taking the time to reflect, I'm able to think about the concept in different ways so that I can reach you guys, so that I can reach whoever I'm engaging with at the time. So that's pretty simple. Really, when I mean reflect, I just say take time to seriously think. Now I'm going to explain why it's very beneficial, why you should reflect on a regular basis, why you should make it a part of your schedule, make it a part of your routine. The very first reason you need to reflect is because it will deepen your understanding of concepts. So let me start with a metaphor. When you plant a seed, you obviously have to water it, right? You need to water it so that it grows. But you can't water it too much. You can actually overwater a plant. And apparently, when you do that, you can end up drowning the plant. So too much can be dangerous. So how does this relate to reflecting? How does it relate to self-improvement? When you encounter new information, you need to let it soak in. You need to set time aside so that you actually retain what you've learned. And why do you need to do this? Because you want the information that you took in to be helpful in your life, right? That's ultimately why we're doing this. That's ultimately why you're listening to this podcast. You want to learn something new so that you can better your life. For a personal example, I wanted to read 40 books this year. That was one of my yearly goals. And I actually stopped keeping track, but I'm guessing by the end of the year, I'll probably have read about half of that amount. I'll probably read around 20 books this year. And that's still really good. I'm happy with that. But it's nowhere near 40, right? I completely am going to miss the goal. And I realized something, that when I started to read at a pace where I would be able to accomplish that goal, where I would be able to read 40 books a year, I was taking in a lot of information. And that's good. I was learning a lot of new things, but not many of the concepts that would actually be helpful to my life were sticking. And I think a large reason for that is because I wasn't taking the time to reflect. So I realized that at some point, taking in too much is counterproductive, and that if I slowed down how many books I was going to read this year, I was probably actually going to get more out of that. So when I started reading fewer books, when I started slowing down my pace, the concepts in those books, the information that was really helpful, started to stick more. Rather than spending all that time reading, I would spend part of that time reflecting. So let's say, just to make this nice and simple, I would read for 2 hours in a day, which I never really did. I think that's way too much. But just to be hypothetical, let's say I read 2 hours and then never reflected on it. Okay, I might retain some of the information, but not all of it. Now, if I read for an hour and then spent an hour reflecting, that knowledge that I had learned from that hour of reading really, really stuck. Like, it really, really helped me. And then, I'm able to use that knowledge for podcast episodes. I'm able to actually use it in my everyday life. And that's what really matters. I've realized that a lot of my growth has not come from reading more, but from reading less and reflecting more. Which is weird. This is almost contradicting, because at first you might think, if I need to grow, I need to constantly learn all the time. But really, that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes you need to slow down so that you can actually move forward. That kind of is odd, but it really, at least for me, is true. So I think that's the very first reason you need to reflect. You'll gain a deeper understanding of what you've actually learned, and that will allow you to actually use that information to better your life. Now let's move on to the second reason. Like I said, these are all kind of intermixed, so there might be 2 reasons in this episode, there might be 3. I broke them down as best as I could, but I think they definitely will become intertwined. So for example, the second benefit is you actually start thinking, and when you start thinking, you create new breakthroughs and you solve problems. You're probably saying, Ian, I think all the time. What does that actually mean? It's not like my brain turns off. Well, here's what I mean. When you deliberately slow down, you give yourself the ability to really think on a deeper level, kind of like what I talked about in that first benefit. we sometimes run around so much that we miss what's right in front of us. I have found in my times of reflection that the voice in my head will tell me exactly what I need to hear if I allow it to speak. I have found that truth is found in silence. Okay, now I'm getting a little philosophical, so let me back this up. Let me provide you with a real life example. So, one of the questions that I'm commonly asked in regards to this podcast is, Ian, where do you get your ideas from? How do you come up with all these topics that you talk about? And most of it is from my time in reflection. If I'm running around, if I'm busy with school, if I'm working out, if I'm working, if I'm doing a lot of things, it's hard to come up with ideas for the podcast. Like, it's really, really difficult to just, try to think through it really quick. Oh gosh, I'm running out of time. What should I talk about in next week's podcast? It doesn't really work that well. It is very difficult to do. Same thing with social media posts. If I'm trying to post once a day and I don't think about it until the night before, I really struggle to come up with content for the next day. It's very difficult. A lot of my creative ideas come from that time in reflection, come from where I have no distractions, I have no obligations, where I can just think. I think the same is true for all the problems we have in life. If we just take some time to listen to the voice in our head, we'll often find the solution. I think some of this is intentional. I think sometimes we keep busy so that we can ignore the problems in our life, hoping that they just go away. But in the long run, that's never going to be beneficial. It's better to just address a problem as it arises, take care of it as soon as possible. It's similar to how you create a step-by-step plan to accomplish a goal. You can actually create a step-by-step plan to solve a big problem, but you need to take time to come up with that plan. So that is why it's important to reflect. Sometimes you don't even need to do that. Sometimes when you just get a moment of silence, you'll figure out what you need to do, and that's always a good thing too. So if you get anything out of this episode, I think it's this. When there's a problem in your life, find some silent time so that you can think of the solution, or so that the voice in your head can help you with that and take care of it as soon as possible. A lot of times the problems in our life are unnecessary. We really don't have to have them in our life, but we often make them worse by ignoring them. And that's never good. That's never helpful. In the long term, that might cause a lot of problems that are really, really unnecessary. So when there's a problem, take some time to reflect, take some time to solve it. That's it. All right, on to the third reason. So I think the third benefit of reflection is that it gives you a chance to self-assess. And in the long run, this is going to help you be more productive. For this podcast, I have so many brilliant ideas as to how I could grow. There are a million things that I could do in the long run. And as soon as the idea pops in my head, I often want to start working on it. But when I slow down, I realize that a lot of those ideas don't make sense for me right now. The truth is, I'm only one guy, I can only do so much, and there are other things to focus on. For example, I saw that Facebook groups were good for building a community, so I created one really an hour after I had that idea, and then I never really posted anything in it, and now I'm stepping away from it for some time. I thought about how I could create a forum on my website to pretty much do the same thing, to build a community, and I realized, okay, I probably don't need to really do that right now. There are so many ideas. I mean, the t-shirts, that didn't end up working out right now. So many. But when I slow down, I realize, okay, if I work on all of these things, I'm going to get nothing done. I need to focus on a few core things that are going to really help me grow, that are going to benefit me the most. So what should I do? I should probably try to be as consistent as I can with this podcast. So that's one of my goals. Now, if I had never taken the time to reflect, I might not have realized this, and I might have been trying 50 different things at once without really getting anywhere. But by doing so, by reflecting, I realized, okay, this is the route I should go, and now I'm able to be more productive with that. With this, another benefit inside self-assessment is that when you reflect, you're actually able to figure out what you want out of life. We have so much stimuli coming in at one time, whether it's from social media, whether it's from a text message, whether it's from a car passing by, whether it's from school, whether it's from work, whether it's from sports. There's just so much going on at once in our world. And it's easy to lose track of what you actually want. It's easy to not know what you want. You might not even know. You might not have never figured out what you want to do with your life. In my times of reflection, I've realized what I want. I've realized, okay, this is the person I want to be. This is the life I want to have. This is where I want to end up. When I was thinking about that in times of reflection, there was not any other stimulus coming in. It was just me. It was just my thoughts. And that little voice in my head told me exactly what I was looking for. So this third benefit was a little bit shorter, but still definitely very important. The last reason that you should reflect is that it is good for your mental health. The truth is, you need to take breaks. I just saw a guy on TikTok post something. He posted a video that said, sometimes in order to be successful, you need to sacrifice your mental health. You need to be willing to give up your mental health. And there are so many problems with that statement. So first of all, what does it mean to be successful? One of the problems that I have with social improvement, with self-improvement, is that when we talk about success, we just talk about Lamborghinis. We talk about billions of dollars. We talk about, making bank in the stock market. And that's not what success is. I mean, maybe for some people, but for a majority of people, including myself, I don't want that. That doesn't sound like success to me. So one of the things that I suggest you do, this is a little off topic, but I think it's very beneficial, is create your own definition of success. Again, reflect, figure out what it is you want, and then take the steps to achieve that. Don't allow somebody else to tell you what success is. Figure it out for yourself and go after that. So that when you look back on your life, when you're 80 years old, when you're getting close to the end, you can look back and say, yep, I did it. I'm successful. I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm content with what I did. The second issue I've got with this statement, obviously the more clear one. You should never sacrifice your mental health. As I've talked about before in this podcast, pretty much straight out of the womb, I was served a fat plate of OCD with a side of anxiety, right? I've been dealing with issues for quite some time. It's been on and off. At times it's been worse than others, but the struggles are there. They are very real. One of the reasons that I struggled in recent years was because I didn't pay attention to my mental health when I should have. By no means was it intentional. I wasn't trying to grind and intentionally sacrifice my mental health so that I could become successful, right? That's not what I was trying to do. It was unintentional, but I still suffered the consequences of a mental health that was not where it should have been. It deteriorated, and that should not have happened. I mean, I feel like I shouldn't even have to say this, but I'm going to, just in case. You're going to perform your best when you feel your best. I mean, that's pretty obvious. That's pretty clear. So while you might be able to maintain that grind lifestyle for a little bit, you're not going to be able to do it forever. Your mind is a muscle. You can't just keep going. You need to rest it at times. You're not a robot. You have emotions. You have struggles. It's not cool to ignore that. It's important that you acknowledge it. Don't ignore your mental health. The consequences of a really poor state of mind can be very, very severe. So please don't ever do that, right? As much as I love working on this page, I take breaks. As much as I love working out, there are days where I slam ice cream. As much as I love getting up early and working on my goals, there are days where I stay in bed for another 2 hours. So give yourself a break. Okay. I've personally found in my times of reflection, I'm able to tend to my mental health. I'm able to restore it if need be. So, what does that look like? Again, just going on a walk and removing any distractions. It means going fishing, removing any distractions, just enjoying myself, taking a break from the real world, taking a break from all of those stimuli that are coming in at once. It's nice to relax. It's very helpful. Sometimes it's cool to just think. It's honestly kind of fun, I think. And it's really good for your mental health. If you're not buying into this yet, if you don't believe that it's good for your mental health, let me provide you with an example. Actually, this example, this metaphor is from Tommy, so shout out to you, Tommy. He just called me about this example. He literally gave me a phone call and said, Ian, I think this is a good metaphor to use if you like it. And I really did like it. So thanks, Tommy. I just had that phone call with him a couple of days ago, and I was able to implement it into this episode. So that's pretty cool. So think back to a physics class that you've taken. Think of a basic physics equation like E equals mc squared. Well, we know that in those equations, in all of physics, they tell you that energy is not created or destroyed, it's just transferred back and forth. So Tommy said you can think about your own life, your own body as a part of a closed system. You can't create more energy, you can only transfer it back and forth. Now, obviously, there are some good habits you can implement. You can eat better, you can exercise, you can sleep more so that you have a little more energy each day. But for the most part, you can only do so much in a day. I think that's fair to say. Because you only have so much energy, you have to transfer that energy into every part of your life. You have to balance it out. So yeah, while you have to work on your career or your schooling, you also have to exercise, you also have to have a social life, and you also have to tend to your mental health. You have to put some energy there. So think about this. If you don't, let's say you go all in on your career, you're solely focused on, making $1 billion or whatever your career goal is. I'm just making up silly examples as I go. If I put 100% of my energy and 0 into my mental health, 100 times 0 is still 0. In the end, it doesn't work out. In the end, everything falls apart. You have to balance it. You have to work that out. That was an awesome example from Tommy, so I hope I explained it well, bro. That is all I have for today's episode. Let me quickly go through all of the benefits I talked about. So the first reason that you should reflect is because it deepens your understanding of concepts. And when you understand something on a deeper level, you're able to implement it into your life. The second reason, you actually start thinking. And when you start thinking, you create new breakthroughs and you solve problems. The third reason, the third benefit, it provides you a chance to self-assess. And in the long term, this is going to help you be more productive. And of course, the last reason I just talked about, it's good for your mental health. And you need to take care of that. So in short, you need to reflect to move forward. And you can do this any way you can. You can go fishing, you can go on a walk, you can do anything really. I mean, it's up to you. Wherever you're able to reflect, that's all that matters. So find that place, find that time. It's going to benefit you in the short term and the long term. So it's a twofer. Make sure you reflect. If you really enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend, share it on your social media. And if you don't want to share it, honestly, that's cool too. I'm happy that you stuck with me through this entire episode. I hope it was of some benefit to you. I hope you can take the ideas from this podcast and implement them into your own life so that you can grow, so that you can move closer to where you want to be. Really, that's why I'm doing it. I'm trying to give you guys implementable tools so you can get to where you want to get in your life. Yeah. That's it. That's all I got. Stay connected with me on social media. I've got all of my social media links that I actively use in my link tree down in the description. I use Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok the most often. So go find me there. Until you're back listening to the next episode of Ion Motive, remember, take charge of your being.